What's hidden under the jungles of New Guinea? There's an island most people have never thought seriously about, and almost everything about it will surprise you. It is the second largest island on Earth. Only Greenland is bigger, and only just barely. Stretched across Europe, New Guinea would run from England through Germany and Poland to the Black Sea. Dropped over the US, it would stretch from New York to Dallas. Yet most people picture something closer to the size of Ireland. That's because standard world maps distort sizes near the equator, making tropical landmasses look smaller than they are. In reality, roughly 80% of New Guinea is rainforest, the third largest on the planet behind only the Amazon and Congo. Through its center runs a mountain chain on the scale of the Rockies, holding the highest peaks between the Himalayas and the Andes. Near the summit of the tallest, Puncak Jaya, at nearly 16,000 feet, there are glaciers. Tropical glaciers, a few degrees from the equator. A Dutch explorer reported seeing them in 1623 and was mocked for nearly 300 years before an expedition finally confirmed he was right. Now they're almost gone. By 2024, they'd shrunk 97% from their 1850 size. The most recent study, published in 2025, found just 0.165 square kilometers remaining. By 2030, they're expected to disappear completely. The first time in tens of thousands of years, New Guinea will have no glaciers at all. That's just the beginning of what's hidden here. New Guinea is one of the least explored places on Earth, and the discoveries keep proving it. Thousands of new species have been described by researchers since 2010. Mostly small organisms, but larger finds still happen. In 2025, a biologist captured the first ever photographs of a subalpine woolly rat in the wild. A 4-pound, 2.5-foot rodent previously known only from museum specimens. The Wandiwoi tree kangaroo, discovered in the 1930s and declared extinct decades later, was photographed alive in 2018. Edinburgh's long-beaked echidna, known only for a single dead specimen since 1961, was filmed alive in 2023, pulling it off the extinct list entirely. One researcher on that expedition fell through a moss pit into an unknown cave system and broke his arm, discovering half a dozen new cave species in the process. Another spent 3 days with a leech attached to his eyeball. This is what fieldwork in New Guinea looks like. With 2 large extinct animals resurfacing within 5 years, one rediscovery gets discussed more than any other. The thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger. This striped, dog-shaped marsupial predator once ranged across the ancient landmass, connecting New Guinea and Australia before rising seas split them apart roughly 10,000 years ago. It vanished from mainland Australia around 3,200 years ago, likely outcompeted by the dingo, but survived in Tasmania, where the dingo never reached, until European bounty hunting wiped it out. The last known thylacine died in a Hobart Zoo in 1936. It was declared extinct in 1982. New Guinea is enormous. Its interior remains largely unexplored. The thylacine's range once included it. Given recent history, nobody serious claims it's still out there, and nobody can definitively rule it out either. Beyond what lives in the jungle is the question of who lives there. Papua New Guinea holds a distinction no other country can claim. Its population is genuinely unknown. The 2024 census put the figure at 10.18 million, but the count has been widely criticized. A warehouse of census materials caught fire mid-count. Vast interior regions went unreached, and only 13% of the population lives in cities, the lowest urbanization rate on Earth. A separate UN study using satellite data estimated the real population closer to 17 million, a gap roughly the size of Switzerland's entire population. Papua New Guinea may simply not know that around 40% of its own citizens exist. Much of this comes down to isolation. More than 1,000 languages are spoken across New Guinea, roughly 1 in 7 languages on Earth. Papua New Guinea alone has over 840, most entirely unrelated to each other, the most linguistically diverse country in the world. Some communities were unaware that neighbors a few kilometers away even existed until recently. The 2 lingua francas, Tak Pisin and Hirimotu, are known by fewer than half the population, meaning communication between groups in the same country is, in many areas, still impossible. That isolation was demonstrated starkly in the 1930s, when Western explorers using aircraft finally reached the highland interior, expecting sparse settlements. Instead, they found a thriving society of roughly 1 million people who had developed in total isolation, the last major first contact event in human history. Europeans reached the South Pole before they reached inhabited New Guinea. These were not recent arrivals. Humans first reached New Guinea an estimated 60,000 years ago, during one of the earliest migrations out of Africa. At Cook Swamp, archaeological evidence shows these communities independently invented agriculture roughly 8,000 years ago, domesticating bananas, taro, and sugarcane, crops that later spread worldwide through trade. One mystery remains unresolved. The sweet potato is native to South America, yet it arrived in New Guinea in the 13th century, centuries before Columbus. The leading theory: Polynesian navigators reached South America between the 11th and 13th centuries and carried it west through trade. Once it arrived, it transformed highland life, growing well at altitude and usable as pig fodder, allowing populations to expand into complex societies at elevations previously unsuited to dense settlement. A South American vegetable may have reshaped New Guinea's history before Europe knew either place existed. One of the island's most haunting mysteries involves a single disappearance. In November 1961, 23-year-old Michael Rockefeller, son of New York Governor Nelson Rockefeller and great-grandson of John D. Rockefeller, was sailing along the southwestern coast when his boat capsized. He tied 2 empty fuel canisters around his waist and swam for shore, roughly 12 nautical miles away. He was never seen alive again. A massive search found no trace of him. Dutch colonial officials ruled it a drowning. Missionaries fluent in the local Asmat language collected a very different account. Asmat warriors, still practicing ritual revenge killing at the time, encountered a white man matching Michael's description on the beach that morning and killed him in retaliation for a Dutch raid years earlier that had killed several of their own. Witnesses described a ritual consumption of his remains. The missionaries' report and a separate Dutch investigation reaching the same conclusion were both suppressed. The Dutch could not afford the scandal during a tense political standoff with Indonesia. In 2015, filmmakers reviewing unused footage from 1969, 8 years after Michael vanished, found a brief clip of Asmat men paddling a war canoe alongside a white man resembling him. Nobody has ever identified who he was. Western New Guinea hides a different kind of story, one that is deliberately concealed. When the Dutch transferred the territory to Indonesia in 1962, the agreed vote on its future involved just 1,025 hand-picked people, voting at gunpoint in 1969. The result, unsurprisingly, favored Indonesia. West Papuan activists have disputed its legitimacy ever since, while Indonesia has kept the region largely closed to journalists and outside observers for decades. Researchers estimate as many as 300,000 indigenous Papuans have been killed since the occupation began. A Yale Law School report concluded Indonesia's actions meet the legal definition of genocide. A resettlement program has shifted roughly half the territory's population to Indonesian settlers and their descendants. The armed resistance movement, the OPM, still fights with little more than bows and aging rifles, while one of the world's largest gold and copper mines, Grasberg, sits at the center of it all, generating revenue that keeps much of the world disinclined to look closely. Tropical glaciers disappearing by the decade, species resurfacing after decades presumed extinct, a country unsure of its own population, the last first contact event in human history, an unsolved disappearance tied to one of America's wealthiest families, a hidden conflict still ongoing, and somewhere in all that jungle and mountain, the remote possibility of things not yet found. New Guinea may be the most unknown large place left on Earth, and most people have never given it a second thought. If New Guinea surprised you, there are entire regions hiding stories just as extraordinary. Subscribe for the geography and history that never makes it into the mainstream.